if you want to get better, you want to improve your life, start with doing something physical. Start with something you like that you will do consistently, and you'll start making that incremental progress, and then it'll bleed into all other areas of your life.
Okay, we are live. We are live. Jeremy, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate making the time.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course, of course. Just so everyone knows listening, as always, I came across you on Twitter and I saw that you were on a fitness journey. Their bio was something like overweight, former overweight dad, now my own fitness journey. I've seen you ran, what was it, 6 ultra marathons?
Yeah. I've run 6 now. The longest was 75 miles last year.
Oh my goodness. That is wild. One of my brothers, I have 3 older brothers. One of them, his Misogi this year, his physical Misogi has done a 50-mile race.
Nice.
And oh my goodness, that is wild. As I just told you, I just ran 20 yesterday. It's my longest I've ever ran, and my legs are done.
Yeah, nice, man. Well, yeah, you got to beat up the legs sometimes for sure. But yeah, 20 is a great, I'm training for a 100-miler. It'll be my first 100-miler in October. So I'm doing like weekly 20-milers now. But, once you do enough of them, they start to, like, as weird as it sounds, they start to feel kind of normal. So you just got to keep going.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. Do you know the term? I might be saying it wrong. The term Misogi. Do you know what that term is?
No, I don't. What is that?
I want to say it's Japanese,
Yeah.
but it's a term for
But
doing
once a year you do something really hard. Is that what it is?
Yeah, your one
Yes,
really hard thing you want to do this year. My brother does a physical one and like a mental one, which he quit his job, went full-time entrepreneur this year, actually last month, and then his physical Misogi, as I mentioned, was that 50-mile race. It sounds like something you'd be very into.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely how I do my running. Like, I do one big long event every year, and I've just built the distance that I've done every year since 2017 when I started with a half marathon. Then it was marathon, 50K, 50 miles, 60 miles, 75, and 100-mile this year. Now, last year I did started inserting some other races. Like, I did the Goggins 4x4x48, but like the focus is like the one big race per year. So yeah, the Misagi, that makes a lot of sense. I do think, because when I talk about like ultra marathons, I think all the training is good, right? It's all very healthy, good for you. But the actual act of that ultra marathon, where you're gonna, like, last year it took me like 20 hours, right? Like, I'm kind of putting my body at risk. I might get injured, maybe I'm pushing too hard, but it becomes about the mental game. It becomes about strengthening your mind and building that mental toughness and doing that really hard thing once a year. Yeah, man, I like kind of going into that deep, dark place of despair where it hurts. But I think that's where you learn a lot about yourself and that you're stronger than you think. So that's really cool that your brother's doing that, and good luck to him. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, y'all have a lot in common. Y'all have a lot in common. So you said that in 2017 was your first big race. Was that when the like fitness journey of yours began? What's the story there?
Yeah. So going a little further back, when I was a kid, I was a little kid. It was one night in the middle of the night, my dad had a heart attack, and I think I was about 5 years old. And I can remember my mom waking up my older brother in the room next door to me. She didn't wake me up. I was a little kid, right? They thought I was sleeping through it, but I was awake and aware and kind of like had a sense of what was happening. It was definitely scary. But like in hindsight now, it feels like my dad went from hospital bed to marathon finish line. He changed his lifestyle, became a runner, and was that example for me, right? That you can make that kind of change and live a healthier lifestyle. So that seed was planted pretty early that, like, hey, one day I want to run a marathon, right? I remember riding my bike alongside him on his training runs and stuff like that. And then, I was kind of, an athletic kid. I played a lot of baseball, did track. I was a sprinter. And then, I college, and I kind of in my 20s became a little bit more sedentary. Still hit the gym some, but like running, I would try to run because I knew I always had this goal of running a marathon, and I would just make a lot of classic common mistakes that recreational runners make, which is, the primary one just being going too hard too often, like, beat yesterday, like you want to get a good workout and be that sweaty, slobbering mess afterwards. And so inevitably I would, got a lot of shin splints and other injuries and just end up shutting it down. And, just kind of like was leading this unhealthy lifestyle where I was kind of eating not healthy, way too much, binge drinking on the weekends. And it kept going like that, working a job that I didn't really love, that, paid the bills, but there was no meaning behind it. And got to the point where I was kind of in my mid 30s and I had young kids, and, I knew I wasn't being the example for them that my dad had been for me. And around that same time, it became financially feasible for me to go back to school. So actually the biggest catalyst for change in my life at that time, say my mid 30s, I'm 42 now, was going back to school, because I didn't feel like imposter syndrome big time. I was super scared of it. I graduated from college just like doing the bare minimum in 2003. And then I was going back to school. This was 2016. And it did force me to snap out of like a fixed mindset into a growth mindset, because I didn't want to have the same experience that I had in college, where I just scraped by, did the bare minimum, didn't really learn anything, and just like picked up this piece of paper at the end. I wanted to actually learn something, grow, become better, be able to have more opportunities and options afterwards, right? And so like I had a list, like, go to every single class, speak up in every discussion, do every assignment, go meet every professor during their office hours, stuff like that. And so that was kind of the biggest catalyst for change. I ended up graduating with honors. And then around that same time, or during the 2 years that I was back in school, I started running again and finally listened to my dad's very simple advice to slow down. And actually that first year that I was able to run consistently without getting injured, I just went 100% slow, which is hard for me to do, because back when I was a kid, I was a sprinter, like baseball. I was like the leadoff batter, like, expected to steal bases, stuff like that. And so just going slow and just being super disciplined about it, like monitoring my breathing. Am I getting out of breath? Can I still speak? And if felt like the effort was going too hard, I'll also look at heart rate data. I was slowing down. Hit a hill, I was walking. A lot of runners stand to benefit from starting with walking, or like a walk for a minute, jog for a minute type of thing. And that's what made the biggest difference. There's also some books I read at the time, 80-20 running. Matt Fitzgerald definitely talked about slowing down a lot, and that had an impact on me as well. And then I just was able to build the distance. And so in 2017, half marathon. The next year I got my marathon. And then, so like, it's kind of like a competitive thing that came out, with my dad. My brother was a really accomplished runner, very fast, was winning half marathons. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go farther and farther. And that'll be my thing. Yeah. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 6-7 years now.
Incredible. And I obviously at some point I knew the growth mindset was going to come up, because that's really everyone that runs. I have 3 older brothers. 2 of them are very into fitness and running, and the other one, as myself, getting more and more into it as well. And it's always just people who are motivated in life, who have this growth mindset of, I want to accomplish goals and I want to see how far I can push myself. You said that going back to school in 2016 was the catalyst for that, correct?
Yeah.
So what was it about going back to school? Like, what were you studying? Like, was it an opportunity to get into a field that you really wanted to get into? What was it exactly about that time that just put you into that mindset?
Yeah. So when I graduated from college in 2003, I graduated with a degree in philosophy. And like I said, I didn't take college seriously. So naturally, I ended up with a job in finance and, did okay with that. But I kept, I would work for 3 or 4 years and I just get so miserable that I'd go and try and do something else. I became a middle school math teacher. I became a personal trainer, which actually serves me well now. I was trying to do these different things, but then I'd come back to working in finance because I knew I could make some money there. And I think it just got to this point where my wife, my dad just kind of saw how miserable I was working in this industry that I didn't feel passionate about. To me, it felt like I was just moving other people's money around on a screen all day and like contributed to that kind of sedentary lifestyle. And And that's when they were the ones who pushed me to go to business school to get my MBA, because I'd always had this, like, like I started a personal training business and like had tried some other things in entrepreneurship that had failed. And my father was an entrepreneur as well. And so going to business school, I went to Babson College. I live in the Boston area. Babson College is very well known for entrepreneurship. And, it's, 20 minutes away from where I live. So somehow I got in. I really don't know how I got in. I must have written a good essay or something, because I definitely didn't have the college transcripts, although they were just so old at that point. But yeah, they really pushed me to, they're like, look, I could also see in the job that I was at, like in the department that I was working in, that it was kind of like, I progressed up, I become a manager, I was managing people, but there wasn't like a lot of opportunity above that. There was just like too many people. There's too many people. It was a big company. It just wasn't there. And so then they really pushed me, and my dad, it's like, I'll help you out financially. So you can go back to school full time and really focus on that. And yeah, that's kind of the story there that got me to do that. And like I said, I was just like, I was so scared. I remember some of those first days seeing these people that had done really cool things, and they were 10 years younger than me, and getting up there and presenting things like that were captivating an audience. And I was like, I do not belong here. But just showing up every day and checking those things off the list and going to all the classes and stuff, you start to realize like, hey, I am just as smart as these other people, maybe smarter than some of them, and just as good. And like, I'm improving, I'm getting better. Like, so, I mean, it's hard to say like, yeah, this thing clicks and like you go from like fixed mindset to growth mindset. It's kind of like a process, but I was forced into this situation where the only way that I was going to like survive and thrive was like, I had to adapt and develop that growth mindset that like, hey, like I can get better. I can make incremental progress. I can learn things. Like, I'm good enough to be here. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the story behind that.
I love that. It's a good story. It touches on like the different parts of kind of that battle of going from fixed to growth mindset that everyone goes through, the imposter syndrome that we all go through, feeling we're behind. In your case, in my case, in some cases as well, eventually we are to the point where, I'm just older than these people. Am I that far behind? And all these different things. And as you said, it's not a one day thing. It's more of a stock. It's more of it's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. But you zoom out over the weeks, over the months, and you look at what you've done. It's a really cool thing. One of the things my brother does is, he's trying to do at least, he will write down the wins of the day, like on a calendar. It's on a calendar, like what did I do good today? So when he's having a bad day and something, I still don't feel like doing anything, whatever it is, he can go look at the calendar and go, well, look at how much we've done well over the last month or over the last couple of months. And again, it's just those little tiny incremental wins. They add up. It's all exponential. And I mean, I can just tell talking to you that you have this growth mindset, that you have this positive mindset, that you want to be this example. And we won't even talk for 10 minutes. And you want to be this example for your kids, and all these things you want to accomplish and live a long, and not just long life, but like a well-fulfilled life where we can move and be with your kids and do all those things. So it's incredible. I love the mindset. I love the journey. And also, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur myself, at least a little bit. So I'm curious to hear more about that. So you got your MBA. Did you go start your own company, or did you go to the corporate world? What was next?
Yeah. I'll talk about that in a sec. I just want to comment on, I love that your brother. I don't do exactly like that practice, but I was reading, I've been reading Storyworthy, where he has like, you write down the story of the day. It's a really great book if you want to craft better stories. But that's a really cool practice, that like the win of the day. I think I posted a tweet just in the last couple of days that I'm far from perfect. Like, I watch Netflix, I eat pizza, I drink sometimes, like stuff like that. But like 6 days a week, I get up and go run, right? Like that's like the foundation of me getting better. It's like everything, like running has become this thing that I can just frame everything through and like build like a life and like all the habits and like, like I want to be an example for my kids. Like so much feeds into running, and sure, writing about running online has made me even more hardcore, because like there's an accountability factor there. Like I gotta be the person that I say that I am on Twitter, right? So I love that practice. That's a cool one. I maybe I'll adapt or add that to the thing. I think that's a cool one. Writing down the win of the day. Yeah. So
Actually,
post.
real quick before you go into the
Yeah.
entrepreneur part, I want to keep going down this rabbit
Sure.
hole for a little bit. Just because you were saying, it's the core foundation thing, it really does seem to be so, like in this fixed mindset. I was talking to Dave Donna. The episode's actually up, so I want to say I was talking to him a few weeks ago. This is a man who he got to over 400 pounds, and he had his moment. It wasn't college, it wasn't necessarily school, but his moment was he stepped on the scale and said air, and he thought, oh, it must be the scale. He bought a new one and said air. It's, oh wait, let me see what the weight limit is, and it was 400 pounds. And he's like, that was kind of his catalyst moment, and from there it really was like he was working to get the 399. He saw 399 one day, about 2-3 weeks in, and that was his moment for him. It was like it kind of changed everything, and now that the physical, show up to the gym every day has just been that core foundation, and he's been able to work his mental health into it. And and his saying is that that's actually what has made me so consistent. And now he's under 300 pounds, and I have no doubt he's going to get to the goals he wants to get to. And he has all these very consistent financial goals and mental health goals and all these things. And for him, it starts with the gym. So it is just really interesting to see how, like, for me, the foundation, or for you, the foundation is I'm going to run 6 days a week, no matter what. Like, yeah, I might have some beer, I might eat pizza, whatever it is. But that's where my foundation is. And it seems to help bleed over into all the buckets of life, help spill over into all the buckets of life.
100%. I think it's so, like, I would recommend for everybody that, like, if you are like in fixed mindset, or you're just trying to, like, you want to be better than whatever you are now, start with the physical. Like, it doesn't have to be running, it could be going to the gym, lifting, whatever, going for a walk. I don't care. But like, cause it can be so simple. Like, put on your shoes, go for a walk, put on your shoes, go for a run, or hit the gym, move some weight around, and you'll see, might be slow, but you'll see progress. Like week in, week out, you lose weight, like whatever, you'll get faster, you'll get better. And I think starting, and like you said, that just bleeds. I mean, obviously physical movement, exercise is great for your mind too, but you start building all these other habits and making better decisions and like getting better sleep and making better food choices. Like that impacts, the ripple effect is enormous, right? So if you want to get better, you want to improve your life, start with doing something physical. Start with something you like that you will do consistently, and you'll start making that incremental progress, and then it'll bleed into all other areas of your life. 100%. Love the story of this guy that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it is an incredible story. The more I've listened to some podcasts he was on before I talked to him, the more I was just blown away by his consistency and his mindset. He's so positive, and that's definitely a hard place to come from. I remember going to the gym as a teenager, and I'm just this tiny little stick of a human, and it was hard for me to go in there because, like, when I was 14, I could bench the bar 45 pounds, and I was and I was curling 10 pound, whatever it was, and that was horrible to go in as, and like it was very embarrassing. And before I really got into a gym and it's like realized what the gym was all supportive people, all looking to get better. Just like one of the best places you can actually be for a supportive community is actually in a gym or in a fitness club or in a running club, whatever it is. And seeing him from the complete other spectrum of I'm 400 pounds, this is embarrassing for me to, I'm going to go here and I'm going to walk and I'm going to just do all these different weight machines I've never seen. And it's just very cool. It's just very cool to see. And it's like, I love it. I love it. And I agree that for everyone that I've seen not even turn their life around, because not everyone's in a horrible place in life, maybe just a bad place mentally. Again, I agree completely. It starts with put your shoes on, go for a walk, do something 6 days a week, 7 days a week if you can, if it's a walk or something if you can. And yeah, I completely agree. I love it. I love hearing it and just reinforcing it in my brain too,
Yeah. I mean, mood follows action, right? Like you get your body into action and you'll start to feel better and do better. And yeah, that's awesome, man. And just like as a side note, Like I talk to runners that have that similar intimidation about the gym, or they don't like feel like they can fit in the time to go to the gym. You don't have to go to the gym. You can do push-ups at home. Like, do you have a floor?
Yeah.
Like Goggins would say, do you have a floor? You can do push-ups, right? Like, like there's a lot. And I mean, a lot of my content on Twitter, like a lot of the video-based content is exercise demonstrations. It's all body weight or like minimal equipment stuff you can do at home, because I'm talking to runners that are probably spending a lot of time running. And so adding this, like, I don't have a gym membership anymore. Like, I think it's great if that's your thing and you want to go to the gym. That's cool. And you're right. There can be a lot of supportive people there and a supportive community there. But there's a lot, like, if you're a runner or you're busy, like you can do things. I'll wake up and like within the first 5 minutes of being awake, I do a plank. I just do like a 2-minute, sometimes longer plank. Like, it's an exercise snack. It like warming up my body in this sort of simple way. Like, and then like I come home from my run and I've got a little swing set in the backyard for the kids to play. I go do some pull-ups. Like, it's not like a full gym session. It's not a lot of things. It's like one set, right? But that stuff adds up. And it's very easy to, and that's actually how I frame a lot of strength training now when I talk to people, is like, look, if you have 30-minute, 45-hour, whatever that you can dedicate, that's awesome. And you can bang out, do a bunch of sets and get a great workout. But if you want to add strength training to your routine and you're a runner, like, you can just put in some exercise snacks here and there, and that's going to make a big difference.
Exercise snacks.
Yeah. I mean, I think Andrew Huberman was talking about them that way on a recent podcast. I'd already heard it a few times, but yeah, I mean, just sprinkle those throughout your day or throughout your week. And, if you get another, 8-10 sets sprinkled throughout the week, that makes a huge difference if you're not doing any strength training.
No, absolutely. I like that a lot. Especially like waking up and just going to planks. Abs is like the one thing I try, or a core of some sort, not necessarily always abs. Like, that's the one thing I try to hit every day, because you can do it in 10 minutes. And like you said, if you got a floor, at least maybe you need a carpeted floor, but if you got a floor, you can get it done. I like it a lot. I love it. It also, like, as far as like community goes and support goes, it doesn't even necessarily have to be in a gym. So like, this is called The Good of Twitter, my podcast. And what brought me to that name was seeing the great communities on Twitter, because when you hear Twitter, at least when I hear Twitter, I think toxicity and, arguing and all these bad things. And what I didn't expect to find on Twitter when I first downloaded it, and I downloaded it for a whole other thing. It's the meme stock saga with GameStop and AMC. I found some people on YouTube that were teaching, and they were on Twitter, and I was like, oh, I'll learn more on Twitter. And I just ended up going down this huge rabbit hole and getting very involved. Well, I wouldn't say involved, but I would say just very in the community. Like, I really knew what was happening in the stock and in the community on a week-to-week basis. And I just found incredible people. And that's who I started talking to, because this eventually will get to entrepreneurship. This originally started as an entrepreneurship podcast for vending machines, because I did that in college, but I just really wasn't into it. I didn't want to do the solo podcast. I really wanted to be more... I really want to do this. I really want to talk to really cool people and just like hear more stories and meet more people. And I found that in that AMC community, and I met people that would teach education on how to look into fundamentals of stocks, how to read financial statements, how to do technical analysis. And then there was these group of people doing a charity called Apes for Change. And it's just an incredible community. And then while I was doing this, I realized, like, this is everywhere on Twitter. Like, this is literally... you got to go find it, but it's everywhere. And you are one of those people that are inspiring that community and inspiring, just personal growth and connection through Twitter. So it can really be, it doesn't have to be in a gym. It can be, I'm into running, and I'm going to run alone when I run, but I do have the support group over family, friends, Twitter, online friends. And like, I've started to build this community that I'm honored to kind of add you to. And it's really cool to see that. Like, yesterday I just posted on Twitter, hey, I just went for my longest run ever. It was 18.5, 12 miles in the pouring rain, and I just posted a picture of like my time, and it was just really cool. It was just like, I got the likes that I got were people I've talked to, and just building that community. So it's a really cool thing. And that whole rant was really just about, like, you don't have to be in a gym to feel that, to get that. It's people that are exercising and educating about it and just kind of on that journey as you are. It just kind of comes with the territory of it's such a good mindset, it's such a growth mindset. You're gonna inspire community. You're gonna find people, and it's really cool to see, especially accounts like yours that have grown. I mean, everyone starts at 0, and you've grown to 40K based off that merit of, hey, you're doing something really good. People are finding a lot of value in this and finding community and inspiration, education. It's just really, really cool to see.
Man,
So
I really appreciate the kind words, man. That means a lot. Like, really. So thank you. Like when I got on Twitter though, I had no clue about that. Like I forgot that it's social media, right? Like I thought, I mean, I'll give you the reason I got on Twitter like early 2022, or what was when I started posting, was I had this book concept that I call the Daily Runner. So if you know the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday, page a day reader, January 1st through December 31st, it's a quote from one of these Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius Seneca, and then like his sort of take on it, and runs through different themes throughout the year. So a similar thing, but just geared towards running, right? Like a quote from an athlete or a coach or some sort of leader related to running, and then like my tweet or whatever analysis or take on it, and then run through some different themes, habit development, goal setting, mental toughness, all this stuff, right? And so I started to put together this book, and then I'm like, how am I going to sell this thing, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I could like do paid ads online, find out where the runners are, Facebook, whatever, right? I'm like, well, in the meantime, why don't I see if I can build an audience online? So I started writing on Twitter and LinkedIn. I eventually kind of dropped LinkedIn, though I still do some stuff over there just because Twitter was more fun. And a few things. And so then I thought like, hey, I'll get some followers, and those will be my customers, right? And that was kind of the plan. And so a couple of things happened. One, through reps of writing tweets and threads, like realized I wasn't that great of a writer and started to see some improvement. So I paused kind of working on the book. And then, yeah, like the social aspect of it, the ability to build relationships. Like I didn't like, it's so obvious, right? But like at the same time, there's so many people, I don't think when they start, they don't realize that that's there, that like, hey, you can develop genuine relationships, friendships, business partners, you name it, right? And you can meet like all these people that in your mind or what you see on their Twitter profile might seem larger than life because they've made millions of dollars or they have these big audiences or whatever it is. But you can connect with all these people through the comments, through the DMs, and develop a real community and real relationships. And I didn't realize that at all until that started to happen. And then so many new doors start opening for opportunities, right? Like I wasn't expecting to become a running coach. I had no plan on doing that. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm coaching runners. Like it's a great way for me to learn what's going on with my audience and what people are struggling with, and hopefully, help them along on their journey beyond just like, I mean, that's the goal of all the content I put out there too. But yeah, so what you're saying like really resonates, that like, hey, like we can build a community here. And I honestly, going back to my business school experience too, I thought it was going to be very competitive, right? Like who's going to get the better grade or do the better project or whatever. And what I realized in those couple of years is like, no, it was more about collaborations. Like how can we help each other? And the same thing is true in these corners of Twitter that are kind of positive spaces where like, hey, we're trying to help, we're trying to share knowledge, share value, help you get from A to B while, somebody else helps me with something else, right? Like that I can learn from. Like I've followed a lot of writers because I wanted to become a better writer. I've been coached by writers online, and that's helped me a lot. So yeah, it's really about collaboration. Like we can all win here, essentially, right?
Absolutely.
It's not a zero-sum game. And
Absolutely.
that's what's really cool about it, and I love it. And yeah, I don't know, I get excited about it, and yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
super cool. No, that reminds me of a book. I'm not all the way through. It's a book called Thou Shall Prosper. It's about a businessman it's written by a businessman / rabbi. And he kind of uses the stories of the Torah to like explain, financial well-being and all these things. And one of the stories I can't remember the Torah story, but really the point of it was that alone in the desert, everyone's poor. And the more people you get together, the more prosperity comes. And it's all because of collaboration. It's all because of, hey, we need to work together. It's about people need to work together. And the more we can do that across the globe, the more prosperity will come. And more prosperity will come through you. And it was kind of one of those things that, that's why so many people give the recommendation, hey, you want to get rich, go move to a city. There's Ray Dalio in his book, Principles. He talks about that. There's a energy in the city. Yeah, which there is definitely an energy in the city. I've lived a lot of places. I've lived as remotely as I'm originally from South Kansas City, where I didn't have cows and horses, but my neighbors did, and been lucky enough through work to live up in Alaska and all these places. And now I'm living in Chicago, and I agree there is an energy there. But for me, it's more so you just have the ability to. You're just going to run into more people, and you're going to be able to collaborate more. And as I've read these different books, that's kind of what I've put together is, it's just the ability to meet people. It's just that network thing. And you find out what you're good at. You're able to speak to it. You're able to, hey, this is what I do. Maybe someday I can help you, or maybe I can help you now. Maybe I can help somebody and vice versa. And that's how prosperity comes to the individual and to the community. And it's just really cool to read about, and especially with these old texts that I'm not a religious person, but I will read these things. It's like I do believe in the Lindy effect, which is the longer something's been around, the more likely it is that it will stay around. And I think there's a reason all of these religions, not just my own, but all of these religious texts have been here. So I do like to learn about them. And that's one thing I've connected from reading great business people and reading these texts, that it just seems to be a thing. And it seems to be almost a universal law there. It is just really cool how vital community is in prosperity, not just even in financial prosperity, now that I'm saying it, but in your mental prosperity, in your familial, in your family, and all of that. It's very cool. Saying that, you were just talking about business school, and you were saying you're a running coach now. So let's finally get to that story of entrepreneurship after business school. What was the business you went into there?
All right, I got to jump back just on one thing on community.
Yeah, no, go.
I'm not avoiding this question, I promise.
No,
I was listening to, or I was watching, Tim Ferriss was recently on Andrew Huberman's podcast, and I think Ferriss has talked about this before, but he's like, when you're young, when you're like in your 20s, like move to a city, because serendipity will happen. Like you'll meet somebody that there's so many opportunities, you're going to meet so many people that good things are going to happen. Right. And like, well, okay, not everybody maybe can move to one of these cities that is a great place for that. But like, you can be on Twitter, you can be on social media, and in these corners, like that's very similar thing, right? Yeah. It's all digital, but you can meet all these people and help each other out. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing so. It's very true.
Yeah. All right. So post my MBA, I graduated in 2018. I tried to start a couple of businesses that failed. One was with a classmate. We were looking at shipping container farms. So sustainable farming in a shipping container. There's companies that will outfit these things for you. And we thought, hey, we could do this at scale. And it never really happened. And then in the same industry, then with another friend, we started a business that we were developing a soil sensor technology. So measuring the health of the soil, moisture, nutrient levels, amount of sunlight hitting and that stuff, and built a working prototype. Ultimately, didn't execute on some opportunities that were present. Like I think a lot of entrepreneurs make this mistake where instead of shipping the minimum viable product, they're like, oh, well, like we need this like one new other thing to be better before we like give it to customers that are asking for it and that are willing to pay for it. Like it was stupid, like how we didn't necessarily do that. And then like it was sort of an industry that I think we had a lot of passion about, but not a lot of familiarity with. And yeah, it ultimately didn't work. I don't need to go into that. And then that's when coming out of that is when I started thinking about this book concept, and then writing on Twitter, and then I became a coach. And I've done like the free giveaway like growth tactic on Twitter, which is fun to do, like to build something of value, and like, but like yeah, I've given away for free, but I've made money off of it because put it on Gumroad and somebody can write in a dollar amount and pay you for it if they want. So to me, that's like, oh, that's a good signal that like I'm onto something with some of the giveaways I've done, which have been beginner marathon guide, destroy your shin splints guide, stuff like that. And so now going forward, like I'm continuing with the coaching, but I don't want coaching to be the main thing. It's something I want to do potentially forever, but like on a limited basis, because it is time consuming. It is, there's a limit to how scalable it is. Like, yeah, you can put in systems and be able to, I provide your weekly running schedule and your weekly strength training schedule as well. And then, access to me, and we'll have conversations and work through whatever issues. But I haven't announced this anywhere, but I'm going to do a webinar, like a 2-day webinar, kind of going through the fundamental principles of running far. A lot of the stuff that I talk about on Twitter anyways, but kind of going a little more deep. I don't do it anymore, but I used to be a Toastmaster. So I kind of enjoy I like writing and making content for social media, but I also it's all communication, right? Like I like speaking too. So the goal of the webinar is to be very educational, a lot of value, that you'll come out with a game plan of like whatever your goal might be. If you want to run a marathon, how you're going to get there. And I'll give some sweet bonuses there with training plans and strength training guides with video database and all that stuff. But I also want to make it like really fun and interesting, infotainment, right? Mm-hmm. Information and entertainment. And somebody was asking me about this, about my newsletter, right? Because my newsletter talks about like a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, and shares. It's kind of like my newsletter is like I target 500 words, pretty short. I only do it send it out once every 2 weeks, but it's like a story and then a lesson, and that's it. And somebody was asking me, is like, well, what if you take your reader from wherever they are now to where their goal is? Then they don't need you anymore. Well, I'm like, well, there's a couple of things. One, they might just want to like go farther, right? Like they ran their 10K. Now they want to run a half marathon, right? Or a marathon. Like there's some differences there. Some other things you need to think about, right? Like fuel during your run, right? But also I was just like, I want to make my newsletter, my content in general, right? Like, so not just educational and value driven, but like fun and entertaining, that you might have come for the running tips, but you stay because you're having such a good time. Yeah. And that's the goal. Like, I don't know if you see when I write comments on responding to comments in my posts or other people's that I'm engaging with, like I just try and make it fun and doesn't, like the common advice on one of the pieces of advice to like grow on Twitter, right, is to comment on other people's accounts, like in your niche, bigger accounts, same size, whatever, but like add value, right? That's the thing, add value. And that's true. And do that, but also just crack a joke and have fun, man. Like what's the point unless we're like having some fun? And that's kind of like the personality that I want to show. And like, I think if people see that too happening in your content, in other people's content, they're like, oh, this guy like is having a good time. I want to be a part of that. And so then maybe they visit your profile and follow you or sign up for your newsletter or whatever, right? I don't know where exactly I was going with that, but like, that's how I think about it. It's like educational, but also just like, let's have fun, man.
Yeah, no, I love it. I could use the advice. Something that like I've definitely struggled with is the actual follower growth and like the view growth. Because like every now and then I'll start seeing it tick up. I'm like, oh, I figured it out. It's fine. But I do think part of that is just I'm like 40 some episodes in, but the first 12 or 15 of those were vending machine episodes. So like I'm really just getting into this and posting once a week with new people every time. And I think part of that is just, just give it a few years and all of that. I keep getting great guests because something that I've been very, very fortunate in is that like yourself, I'm just getting really cool people to talk to. And I feel very lucky about that, because if you go on my account when I'm DMing everyone on Twitter where I get all of my guests, you go on my account and it says 250 followers versus your 40,000 or 50,000, whatever it is. Like, I do feel very fortunate that people are willing to talk with me, and I've just had so many cool guests. I'm just very grateful for that. But the little tips on how to grow on Twitter, I'm always taking notes. I'm always like, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah. That's true. I do think people can see over time, especially like if they see your name pop up enough, they're going to start to pick up on your personality, and they're going to want to follow, at least in my mind, people who are having fun, who are respectful, who are adding value, versus, there are so many people who comment, there's a lot of negative things. It still is Twitter. It still is out there.
Yeah.
So
I struggle with that. Like the other, like I think about content in different buckets, right? Like there's like the personal story that you can share. Like that's going to drive, in most cases, if it's a well enough crafted tweet or thread or whatever, the most number of profile visits per impression, which is like, okay, if you think about this as a business, you create content. The goal there is to get people to go to my profile. The goal of somebody visiting my profile is to follow me. Then, eventually they hopefully sign up for my newsletter. Then they become a customer, right? And so like the story, value-based, educational. But then there's that like throwing stones at the enemy because people get fired up about that stuff, like whether they agree with you or disagree with you. And I struggle with this because like I was advised to do this. I've done it some. It's like, who's my enemy? Like my enemy is like, I don't know, like laziness, like being sedentary, like victim mentality, entitlement mentality. I don't think there's anybody that like takes the side of those things. But then on the opposite end, maybe I don't like, especially, I mean, it's probably because I'm in my 40s, like hustle culture. Like this always like go super hard all the time. Like I like to go hard. Like I run ultra marathons. I run a decent number of miles every week. But like, like in that tweet I was talking about earlier, I also like to eat pizza and like chill out and have a beer, right? Like I think there's a balance there. But like, there's a lot of advice about kind of throwing stones at the enemy. But like it can be a hard one to do because I was like, who am I? Like first of all, identifying who that is, and then it can be kind of uncomfortable. But it gets good engagement. So I try and do it. I probably don't do it that much. Like a lot of people, like I'll see like they're like, oh, Mondays I post a story tweet, on Tuesdays advice. I just do stuff at random, man. I schedule stuff out, but I just write stuff to schedule it for like the next slot. I don't care. And I try to have some balance of different types of things I'm doing. But yeah, also your point about like, first time you start to get like some people coming in, like you're like, oh, I figured this out. And so I had my first viral thread was a little over a year ago. The hook was the biggest lie they tell you, cardio kills muscle growth. Here's the truth and how you can become a jacked runner, right? And then picture of Goggins, of course. And that thing, it was the first piece of content that I had that went over 1,000 likes, and it went over 10,000 likes, and like thousands of people were following me. And I was pretty small at the time, maybe 1,000 or 2,000. And so then you start thinking like, oh, I'm just going to always have like thousands of people following, like new followers coming in. Right? Yeah. But it's Twitter. Like that piece of content is forgotten within 48 hours. Oh, yeah. And you're back to like no growth. And I've been struggling with this recently because ever since I hit like 40K, I've kind of been stuck there. And I mean, part of it is because like I'm working on other things. I'm trying to build a business. I'm not writing as many threads. I'm not even writing as many tweets. I still post at least one thing every day, but it's like at the same time, like I remember having this same problem at a smaller, a little bit smaller size. I remember I was like 12 or 13K. I was just like stuck there for like a couple months, right? And it's just like, you got to realize like, what does it matter ultimately? Like, it's like, if I'm at 40K, like, am I going to feel different at 50K, 60K, 100K? No, like I want to build this business. I want to help people run farther, like stay true to what the mission is. And I mean, like, yes, followers is important, like if you want to grow a business, but it's really not the only thing. And I was just listening to a space before we got on, and they were talking about like examples of people that have like less than 1,000 followers, but are making good money because the people that they are connecting with, they're developing really great business relationships with. So, ultimately it doesn't matter. It's easy to get caught up in that, especially like if you do start having, pieces of content that go viral that get 1 million plus impressions. It's like such a distraction. You can't look away.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
And so I use this app, and there's a bunch of them to like block it, right? So I can only go on Twitter and certain other apps. So other social apps, other certain communication apps, I can only go on them in certain windows of the day. Like I just had to put those boundaries up because otherwise I don't want to be like stopping on my run to check Twitter. Like that seems stupid to me. Like
Yeah.
this is my time
Yeah.
to like not be connected, right? And even if it's just for a little while. But yeah, you've got
No,
I'll stop.
absolutely.
I'll
No,
stop
no, no,
going
no.
on
No, no,
ranting.
I'm here for the rants. I'm here for the rabbit hole talks. That's a great part of podcasts is that we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the time to do this, and sit down, get out all the thoughts. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone on a 10-minute rant or a 5-minute rant. Like I don't remember where I was going with that. It's also it's cool to see like the business side of Twitter growth and things. And because for me, I had a podcast coach when I first started. I did the vending machine entrepreneur, and I saw the success. Like I was getting to the point where I was starting to get downloads in the thousands, and I could see the route of, okay, you build this audience, you sell to this audience. I saw the business formula, but then for me, it was just like I kind of hit this point where I just ran out of content. I was like, this isn't why I wanted to start a podcast. Like for me, it was I want to be able to talk to people because I didn't know who Joe Rogan was before the podcast, and I found him before the controversy, which I'm very grateful for because I definitely think I would have got tricked.
Which controversy?
The CNN. That's where it started. That was the first. That was the first controversy. Oh yeah, no, he likes him since then. But the first one, which like I think I could have got tricked into thinking this guy was someone he's not. And the way I found him is he had a couple professors on. One of my friends was like, hey, listen to this 30 minutes here, and I didn't know this guy was Fear Factor guy or anything like that. I just, okay, this is cool. There were some professors that taught, and then I, on my YouTube algorithm, some other, experienced professional came on. I was like, I want to listen to that guy talk, and I just got introduced to Joe Rogan as this human being who was curious, was just genuinely curious and talking to people and meeting cool people and doing all these things, just having those conversations. And I was like, wow, that's the coolest job ever. And I just kind of decided that's why I got into this. And I don't want to sell to people per se. I just want to be able to connect with as many people that are doing cool things as possible. And that's my goal. So when I get caught in that, why am I not getting listeners? Why am I not hitting growth? And I get caught in that cycle. For me, it's like I always have this number of, and I'm so far away, but I always have this number of 10,000. I get 10,000 and I hit someone up on Twitter. I think they'll take the time to look at that. And so that's where my mind goes versus it always is interesting to see the business side of it of followers. If you're in your niche, you know what you're talking about, you're building good relationships and you can build a business there. It is very cool. Just the different ways we can think about followers and just how that can change from platform to platform as well. It's very cool. It's very interesting. It definitely stimulates my brain in that way. However, we're at 50 minutes and I actually have not a super hard stop, but
okay.
I will need to move on to working. I have a day job at some point here. So I have a couple of closing questions for you.
Sure.
I ask everybody.
Okay.
The first one is, do you have any book recommendations, paradigm shifters for you that you loved inside or outside of business and fitness?
Yeah. Talk about them all the time on Twitter, online. My man, Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. I started seeing Goggins pop up social media on YouTube from podcasts. I don't know, whatever it was, 4 or 5 years ago. And a friend recommended this book. I read this book and, I've got I don't do a lot of the highlighting and shit, but I did for this one because I've read it a few times. I think this is, it's easy to think of Goggins as just I think my wife's perspective on Goggins is just this guy who just grinds all the time and goes crazy hard and does these really amazing physical feats, but he's got he studies the mind and how the mind works. And yes, he came from a very troubled and dark place and became what he is, and that's a really cool story. But I think some of the frameworks that he does and simple practices that he does, like the accountability mirror of putting up your goals and your weaknesses so you see them every day when you look in the mirror, some of his tactics to kind of defeat the quitter's mind, your cookie jar of past accomplishments and obstacles overcome, big and small, when you're in that moment of struggling to reach out and grab a cookie. I'll use that. And if I'm struggling in a hard run or an ultra marathon. And his new book, or his second book, Never Finished, is also really great, just as good almost. or maybe better. I don't know. Highly recommend the audiobook version because he doesn't read it, but he's there and they like talk in between chapters and there's kind of additional
very cool.
there. For both of the books, they did that. And also like I'll throw on like those like YouTube Goggins, Jocko mixes when I'm like running and I'm struggling and like kind of need the extra motivation and inspiration. Like one of my favorites is like this 10-minute clip of, it's called True Dog Mentality. That stuff gets me fired up and like keeps me pushing hard. So Goggins is all about like that growth mindset, what we were talking about at the beginning. And so I don't agree necessarily with everything that he says. Like I don't think he quite is what some people perceive in his mind, that he's just like, I'm going to run, 1 million miles every day and do 1 billion push-ups and all this stuff. I think he does like a lot of zone 2, zone 1 cardio on the bike and like, make sure he recovers and takes care of himself. But yeah, that's like my go-to. Can't Hurt Me. I did last summer, just about a year ago, last July, I did a thread on this book because he breaks it down into like these different challenges. And so I just kind of broke down the challenges, right? And I think it's probably still one of my most viral pieces of content, or it's definitely up there. And yeah, so that's my book recommendation. Both the Goggins books, Can't Hurt Me, Never Finish.
Hell yeah. I actually haven't read either of them. You're not the first one to say how good these books are. It actually reminds me of, in a different way, but similar vein. Have you ever heard of Jesse Itzler? Do you know this guy?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Like you were talking about at the beginning of this, Misagi, like I've heard him talk about it, of doing the one hard thing per year. But yeah, he also has a book which is called Seal, or Living with Seal. And he lived with Goggins. Goggins came and lived with him like for a month, but they didn't say that it was Goggins because Goggins wanted to be anonymous at the time. This book was probably like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, or like when they lived together. But it's more like there's some humor in there, but it also kind of shows you who Goggins is. But yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. That was kind of what I thought of him. My two older brothers are really they're very into, everything we've talked about today. And they love him. They absolutely love him. Like that's their guy. The way David Goggins is your guy, Jesse is theirs. That's where the Misagi came from. And I'm sure they've read Seal. They've listened to all the podcasts with them. So they remind me of each other now, obviously it's not one for one by any means, but they do remind me of each other. There's good overlap with those two.
Yeah, one quick story. There's in that book, Living with Seal. So I'm in the Boston area, right? So I'm a Celtics fan, and so when it was like Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, I loved Kevin Garnett. Like when Kevin Garnett came to the Celtics, we knew it was like game on that year, right? I had season tickets, and he's got that same like mentality, right? And so there's a scene in Living with Seal because Itzler was doing this like beverage. And I think he had a partnership with the Celtics. And so he took Goggins with him and they met. Goggins and KG met. And like, I got to go reread that part of the book. But like, they recognized the mentality in each other, that they had that same like get after it, growth mindset, grind, all that stuff. And I loved that scene in that book because KG, Kevin Garnett, is another one of those guys up there for me. Like, I love that guy.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. It's like the only time I've ever rooted for Boston sports in my life. It was when Kevin Garnett was there. I'm from Kansas City. I'm a big Chiefs fan. Like that, Chiefs and KU basketball. KU basketball's never been bad, but Chiefs were 2-14. I'm still watching every game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I just grew up hating Boston. Just absolutely.
So I mean, I grew up in this area too, and there was such like Red Sox curse. Like, yeah, the Celtics were good when I was a kid too, with Bird and all them, but especially the Red Sox. Like, I was a baseball player, and then like the last I don't know what 20-25 years, we've been super spoiled as Boston.
Yeah, it's been title town. I mean, I'd say the same thing here. I can't complain. We had the 2008 championship for KU basketball when I was a kid, and then that was it. But then in 2014, the Royals had this magical run, and they were the worst team in baseball every year. I'm not a big baseball guy, but then I was a freshman in college. They go on this magical run. They beat. It's still the best baseball game I've ever seen. Was the wild card game in 2014? We were playing the A's, and it was just the most insane game I've ever seen in my life. and they ended up going undefeated all the way to the World Series until Bumgarner just beat them by himself, basically. And since that moment, Kansas City sports have been an absolute. It was a turning point. It was like I feel so spoiled now. I kind of feel bad for like the kids that are watching Mahomes and watching the Royals because like you guys don't know what the next 30 years are going to tell. Like once Mahomes is gone, we're going back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, Patriots have had that like wake up once Brady left. So
yeah, that's forever. But a last question, and I'll let you get out of here. In your opinion, what is the meaning of life?
Ooh.
Take your time.
Man, you're gonna hit me up with some. I'm Victor. I haven't read it recently, but The Meaning of Life, Viktor Frankl, suffering, right? Like I love his thing about like no matter what, how horrible, and I can't even imagine the shit that they went through, right? My daughter went on this like bender of reading Nazi books, and we would read them together and read them out loud. It was like some hard stuff, and she's 11. And I was like, "Are you okay with this?" Like bad, but no matter about how bad it is, like you control like your mind, you control how you respond, like within your mind. Like nobody can take that away. And so, I mean, that's part of like going to that place, or I mean, I can't compare it to that, but like going to a place of suffering in the moment of an ultra marathon when I'm 50 miles in on a 75-mile run and I feel like I have nothing left and all I can think about is how much I want that to be over. But like realizing that getting to that point is the point of the run. And the next time I go there, it's not about like pushing that farther out. It's about getting there and then being able to withstand that better. There's an ultra marathoner, amazing ultra marathoner, Courtney Dauwalter. She's won a ton of races. And she talks about the pain cave and how at the beginning of her running career, the pain cave is like when you're in the low, right? You're suffering. And at the beginning of her career, it's like, how do I push that farther and out in the race? And then she came to a realization that no, the point is to go there and then you get to work. And then she envisions herself with it's a cave and she's got her little chisel and she's making the cave bigger so that she can withstand more. And I love that stuff. Really resonates with me. And I think part of it is like, look, I didn't come from like this really hard background, like a David Goggins, having like abusive parents and all this shit. Everybody has their own trauma that they might have experienced, or probably everybody has some sort of trauma from their kid. Like something bad happened at some point, and it's all relative. But I think, coming from living in a nice town, food on the table, parents have enough money, like two parents, supportive, all this stuff. I started to develop this like entitlement mentality and this is when I'm stuck in a fixed mindset, right? Where I'm, just like, I expect good things to happen. Good shit is just going to fall out of the sky and fall into my lap, right? Like, whether that's like money, a good job, relationship, whatever. And it wasn't until like when I went back, we were talking about the beginning, when I went back to school, that is like, no, you have to earn it. You have to work to earn the things that you want in life. And you're going to have to go through some hard times and suffering to get there. And I don't know if that answers the question of the meaning of life, but I think the meaning, it's like, it's to go through that hardship so that you grow and become better and become the best version of yourself that you can be. Goggins has this thing too, where he's like, he doesn't know, he's not talking like religious, but like say when you die, you go up and you meet God, and God has like a list of, I forget how he puts it, and I'm probably butchering it, but like say there's like two lists. Maybe this is my version. Say there's two lists. Like there's the list of like all your accomplishments, all the good things you did in life, all the people you helped, all the people you loved. And then there's a list of like what you were capable of if you had pushed as hard as possible. And the goal is to make those lists like as close to the same as possible. That you didn't just like rest and like do whatever and dick around and not make anything of yourself, not help as many people, not love as many people as you could. And to get that list as long as possible, you've got to go through some hard times and suffering to get there. So I'll finish with that.
That's beautiful. I love it. love it.
Not bad off the top of my head, man. I wasn't expecting.
No, I know. I get everyone. Everyone
I should.
every
Man,
time I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. Yeah. So no, I love it. I love it. It's a beautiful answer. It really
I
is.
think an even more beautiful answer is actually if you go back to Joe Rogan interviewing Naval, he asked him that question, and Naval probably had a much more eloquent and better answer.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll have to check it out. All right, Jeremy, thank you for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure. Truly,
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to following your journey even more closely now on Twitter and everything, and adding you to my own community here. It's
Definitely.
really been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, man, this has been a lot of fun. It's cool. I've been invited to a few podcasts now, some more running focused, some kind of like some of the stuff we talked about in terms of Twitter and all that. But this has been a blast, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Next time I'll be ready for the hard hitting questions at the end. But yeah, this has been I really enjoyed it. It was a fun conversation.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to bringing it back on. I keep saying this actually. I've yet to actually really think about it because every time I talk to somebody, like, yeah, I'd love to have you back on, and I would love to have you back on. I think
Definitely.
what I need to do is now like plan for like 2024 is just like get a few months in there. I'm like, all right, maybe it's this January and June or something. Like I'm gonna bring everyone back on that I can, and just get the updates on what they've been working on, how life's going.
Yeah.
So whenever that time comes, I'm really looking forward to hearing the update live again.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well.
I appreciate you, and hopefully I'll have a bigger audience when that time comes. And I do have a few things in planning that I'm really looking forward to, and hopefully that will bring something too. But until then, sir, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.
Awesome, man. You too, man. Thanks.